And now, here's the host of Over Easy, Hugh Downs.
Thank you again, and welcome again to Over Easy, a show that each day examines the needs and concerns of older Americans. You know, most of us who have lived through the past three decades will never forget the tragedy of the Kennedy assassination and the strength and composure with which Jacqueline Kennedy faced this most destructive experience. And years later, when President Lyndon Johnson died, his wife, Lady Bird, found a way to articulate that steady grace in the midst of great sadness. Grief, she said, carries its own anesthesia. Well, for the next half hour, we're going to explore what a widow does beyond that point, when those first numb feelings wear away, and she is suddenly confronted with bills that have to be paid and a family that must be fed, and the social and psychological problems of living alone, maybe for the first time in her life. Today, we'll follow separate paths of two women now alone. First, we'll talk with actress Maureen O'Sullivan, who resumed her career after her husband died 16 years ago. And later, we'll meet Helen Costin, who is learning to cope with her husband's death 18 months ago by sharing her problems with other widows. Well, it's been more than 3 decades since Maureen O'Sullivan originally quit Hollywood, trading her role as Jane in the Tarzan movies for the role of full-time wife and mother. In 1963, Maureen's husband, producer-director John Farrow, died unexpectedly after 27 years of marriage, leaving her with 6 children and countless practical problems. Maureen went on to work, and she worked with me on the Today Show, and it was a real joy to work with her. I'm happy now to welcome her back in front of the camera. This will be the first time we've been together in front of a camera and microphone for quite some time, to speak with us about the difficult adjustment that a widow must make. Would you please welcome Maureen O'Sullivan.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Why don't you sit here and I'll sit here?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is not, we don't have quite the same.
It's like the old days.
I was going to say it is like the old days, except as I remember, most of the time we sat the other way around, I think, didn't we? And, no? Were you to the left?
We sat this way.
Is that right?
Yes, because I asked if I could sit this way today, because I said, this is my best side, and they said, well, Hugh sits this way, so it's all right.
Every side of yours is a best side.
Anyway, it's nice to be with you again. It really is.
Good to see you again, Maureen.
Makes me sort of homesick, in a way.
And since we're talking about being a widow, as I look back on this, I really have to, I've never had a chance to confess this to you, but it seems to me that we were so busy then in the mornings and everything, that I was,
early,
and it was early, right. I think that I was not as thoughtful as I ought to have been,
correct,
considering that your widowhood was very recent. It probably was, you know, the business tends to grind people up, and I maybe would have been more thoughtful had I known how recent and traumatic that experience was to you. And what now, in making the adjustment, you were doing the play.
Well, I was in the middle of the play.
That's
and
right.
We had opened, I'm not sure how long we'd been running. I think we'd been running on Broadway probably a couple of months. And it was a weekend, it was a Sunday night, and the phone rang, and Pat O'Brien, the actor, called. The sepulchral voice said, this is a death call, a strange way to put it. He said, your husband is dead. So then I flew out to the coast. I called the producer called me, and I took a week off, and then came right back into the show.
And you resumed it after a week?
Yeah, after 1 week.
Yes.
Well, the strange part was, and I'm sure it's true perhaps of a lot of widows who are in business, not just as actresses, because I'm trying to associate them with my feelings. When you're in a position where you have to, I felt at home on stage, because the lines were written for me. I knew where I was supposed to move, where I was supposed to walk. Get me off stage, I was lost, you know? And that's why I was so very lost on the Today Show, because I was lost. There was nothing specific.
We were all kind of lost in
no,
those
you
days
weren't
on the
lost.
Today Show.
But anyway, let me get back to that. So on stage, I knew what I was doing. It was okay. Now, this was the thing that happened to me, and I don't know if it's happened to other women, too. I had a friend, I used to call her my guru, because she was a great one for health food and you know, and what to eat and how not to be nervous. And I said, well, I've got to go back into the show. I'm only going to take a week off. So, and I had to know my lines and all that. So she said, oh, there's some wonderful, it's a health food, and it's a tranquilizer, but it's made out of herbs and things, and it's called Butasol, which sounds like a lovely name. Butasol, good for the eyes, good for the teeth, you know, lovely hair, whatnot. So I started to take Butasol. Now, what I didn't know was that Butasol, and she didn't know, obviously, or she wouldn't have told me, Butasol is half, they give it in hospitals, it's that green stuff. Have you ever had an operation? They give you a teaspoonful of that
Yes.
green stuff, and it's half alcohol, and it's half phenobarbital.
Oh, really? Oh,
It's great, I'm telling you. I felt like
can hook you there,
something
huh?
sensational.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just kept going marvelously. Well, then when I was working with you, I was taking my beautiful... And, of course, you see, they were so funny in the control booths because I used to forget when they turned me on for the commercials that we were still on the air. So they used to say in the control booth it was more fun when we were doing the commercials because they'd see me taking my green stuff, and I thought you weren't looking.
I didn't know that. And I thought, you know, there's an understandable confusion coming into a program of that kind, which is the format is just fracturing, and it's very hard to learn.
Because there was no particular format.
But I didn't know, and that you got somewhat hung up on that.
I got completely hooked on it.
You did?
So by the time I found out what Butasol was, which was quite a lot later, I didn't bother to find out. It made me feel good. It didn't make me feel dopey because the alcohol seemed to counteract the sleeping pills, the effect of the second half. And I felt great. But by the time I knew what it was, I didn't care. I couldn't get off it.
And how long did it take you then to get to shake loose?
Then by the time I got off the Butasol, it was about 6 years.
Is that right?
You say you never really knew the real me.
No.
You knew the green me.
The green you. Well, now, what were the stages, and how different would it have been? Did that in any way, I don't suppose it was worth it if it got you hooked on it, but did that in any way help you with the early stages of adjustment?
I have to say it did.
But you wouldn't recommend it?
I don't
if somebody's gonna
recommend
get
it,
hooked
no,
on it?
because I think that natural grief is a very good thing, and I would not permit myself any natural grief. I could not afford to be in the show. I could not cry. I could not go on stage with puffed eyes. And it was unfortunate and very unfortunate because I think that the happier a marriage, it seems to me that the quicker widows adjust to...
If it's a happy marriage,
if it's a
you
happy
adjust
marriage,
more quickly.
Yes.
If
I
there's
found
no guilt or...
there's no guilt concerned with it, and somehow they are more fulfilled.
That's an
But
interesting
alas,
observation.
yes, I have noticed that with a lot of women.
To what extent was work a help? Because you did like to work, and did that help you in
It
making
was
you
my
do-
salvation, really.
Really?
Because I was so guilty because I had quarreled with my husband. And also I was feeling guilty because, I'm being very frank about these things, because why not? I had quarreled with my husband the night before he died. And also he was ill, and I didn't go back when he asked me to come back, because I didn't
you did
realize
feel
how ill
guilty
he
about
was.
that.
So my guilt was overwhelming that I might have, I would either have been in an institution. Honestly, I'm not kidding.
that right?
I would have, or I might have killed myself. So I'm
the
grateful
work
to
and the
them.
support of friends
And my green stuff.
and the green stuff. Well, sometimes it can be a help temporarily. If you
And
don't
it
get
got
hooked
me
on it.
through.
Yeah.
But then
No.
getting off the green stuff, then I went on to alcohol, you see. So then, don't I
So you
sound
had to take a
terrible?
series of steps. You finally got free of all of this.
I finally got free.
take it.
It's taken me a while.
I'm glad you are. I want to continue with you in a moment and with another guest. Right now, though, the world of Helen Costin, who lives in Tucson, Arizona, is 2,000 miles away from Maureen O'Sullivan's world in New York. And it may be even further away in the patterns of their respective lives. And yet, Helen and Maureen share a common experience. 18 months ago, Helen's husband died, and until that moment, her life revolved around him and children. And without him, Helen learned to work out her feelings of loneliness and loss with other widows in Tucson. And today, she finds herself on the threshold of a new life with a new freedom that isn't always easy to cope with.
I never realized what a position a widow was in. And it has taken me a year and a half to be able to talk to people about my husband, to get myself straightened around it all. You just go from day to day. I really can't describe it. You're in such a daze at the time. I really don't know how a woman alone does these things. It's a tragic thing. It's just, you can't talk about him because every time you talk about him, you cry. And then I found out later, there's no disgrace in crying to have someone see you cry. Because I think in the long run, shows people what a traumatic time you're having at this time. You're so dazed. You just, it's a complete loss. I don't know. You've lost, I've never really been alone in my life. I've had my sister with me, and we both worked away from home. Then I got married, and I had my husband and my children. But as an adult, it's you have your children, but they do not take the place of an adult. So you need someone there, and my right arm is gone. I've been very fortunate. I still have 2 children with me, living here at home. But I need to have an adult around, someone who you can communicate with on things that are important to you. I have a wonderful family, a granddaughter, but I do not at this time want to spend all my time with my grandchild. I love her dearly. I've got to find something for myself to do. I find it very difficult to make big decisions. Small decisions around the house, you know, like paying the bills, utilities, and things like this, and taking care of the children were fine. But the big decisions were always taken care of by my husband. So that now that I have this, I'm just beginning to pick up the threads of my life. I did make the decision of getting out of the house and doing something with myself. And I decided one time to start riding the bus, just to meet people, just to hear men's voices, to smell Vitalis or Aquavelva. Now I find myself walking maybe a mile to the bus, to catch the bus, to go down to my classes. It's great exercise for me, wonderful, and I enjoy myself just sitting on the bus and listening to people talk. It's great. Short while after my husband died, I read in the paper about an 83-year-old woman who was teaching yoga at the Jewish Community Center. And I thought, I've got to get out. And if this woman, 83, can do this much for herself, and my mother at 98 is rip-roaring to go, I ought to be able to do something. So I started into the yoga class. I have really learned to relax. I have made wonderful women friends down there. That was the thing I needed to do, to find someone to socialize. There are times when I feel like I'm going around in circles. See, I'm looking for something. I don't know what it is I'm looking for.
I'm Genevieve Ginsburg, and welcome to Widow to Widow. It's nice to see you.
One of the programs which I think is very important to the widow, even if she just gets involved in it for a short period of time, is a widow to widow. I've met wonderful friends. We go every Monday to talk out things that have happened to us through the week. In other words, we share our lives with each other. And that's what it's all about, sharing your life with someone else.
How many of you are still wearing your wedding rings? Hold up your hands. Well, that's a pretty good proportion. How do you feel about it?
I'm still wearing my red wedding ring, and could somebody tell me one good reason why I should take it off?
Can anybody give her a good reason? Tell Peggy why she should take it off.
You're no longer married. You're no longer married.
No longer married. Depends on how she feels about her husband.
Well, I was married for 37 years. My husband died 15 months ago, but I still feel that I should wear my wedding ring. I feel as much married as I did when he died.
I think it took about a year for me to be ready to take off my rings. But then I realized that I was ready, my life was going on, I was going to be doing other things, and he was not part of it anymore.
I also took off my ring.
When did you do that, Helen?
About 2 months ago, and don't ask me why. I think I explained it when I just said I felt no longer married.
Yeah,
I have a family and everything. Your marriage vows till death do you part.
yeah.
That's where it's at.
Mr. Helen's come a long way.
I'm coming. I've got to find a way for myself. And there are times I really don't know what I want to do. There again is your decision making, which will come in time. I know it will when I find what I really want to do with my life. I'm not content to sit at home, which is another thing. I think the best thing a person can do is get out and look around and do hundreds of things, and someday it's going to fall into place. I think out of all of this, I'm beginning to find a little peace within myself. You have to find the peace within yourself.
And Helen is, of course, here in our studios in San Francisco, joining Maureen and me. You mentioned, Helen, in the film piece we had there, that the importance of acknowledging grief and
Yes.
expressing it.
Yes.
Otherwise, it causes mischief if you deny it to yourself.
Oh, definitely.
What do you think is the single most important adjustment that has to be made when you lose a husband?
Oh, gosh. I still haven't adjusted.
That's a very short
It's a
time.
very difficult, very, very difficult. I think mine is hard in the respect that I have always been at home, and he's been working outside. I think to find a little peace within yourself is the start, just a beginning.
Now, you have moved toward helping others by getting into the business of where widows can, through association with each other,
Yes,
share
yes.
problems. Does that move, in addition to helping others, help you?
All right, it isn't only widows. It's widow and widowed. But for some reason or other, the men shy away.
The widowers don't.
Oh, you bet, because there's many more of us women, which is,
Yeah.
yes, women outlive the men, definitely.
You mean the men might tend to feel outnumbered, even though you're trying to help to...
Not only outnumbered.
Outvoted?
No. They're scared to go there because there's so many, like I say, single women. And there are women there who are definitely want to get married again.
I've heard men
Definitely.
say that, and
Yes.
I think it's a free country, and even if a woman comes on in a predatory fashion, I don't quite understand why a man would feel threatened, because he doesn't have to get married if he doesn't want to.
But you're not widowed.
No, that's
No,
true. I'm not
it-
a widower, nor am I assuming that anyone would chase me if I were. But it seems to me that I would not want to shy away from companionship if on grounds that somebody might really put the arm on me. Well, that's something I just don't understand.
No, we do need the companionship so badly. Maybe that's the problem. We need it so badly.
And the
we
numbers-
come on a little bit heavy, like I interrupted you just now. I mean, we just seem to want something so badly. I don't mean the love affair. I mean just the actual companionship.
Just because of loneliness that
Right,
naturally
right.
occurs. Right. How long, Maureen, for you? You were busy and you worked and everything.
Yes.
How long? What was the timetable before the real heavy pain of grief would subside?
It never goes away.
I suppose not altogether.
It doesn't really, and I mean, I'd be a liar if I said, and I don't think you ever adjust to being alone, because I think a woman alone is a second-class citizen, and I don't care what anybody says you are. You are. You can't go to a restaurant alone, not really, and get a good table unless they know you. I mean, all these little things sound trivial. I'm just using that as an illustration.
But there
you're
is that problem.
You're a second-class citizen. I am a second-class citizen. I'm very conscious of it. But apart from that, you never really, I mean, I don't suppose there are 3 nights in the week where I don't dream of my husband. So you never, you work out a way of living. Believe me, you do.
Yes.
You work out a way of living, but you never forget it, in my opinion. And I think most women, I think it's very happy if people do marry again. I think that's a very wonderful thing. I really do. Like Oscar Levant said when Dorothy Parker's husband died, she said, "What can I do for you?" And she said, "Get me a new husband," you know, which is so honest, you know, because a woman does need a man.
Well, and partly a person needs another person unless you've been, I'm wondering if either of you have experienced suddenly having to face financial activity that had been taken care of before. Did you tend to lean on your
I'm told I hadn't this problem because being a whatever small celebrity I am, I didn't have that problem. But I'm told that women alone can't even get credit cards. Is that correct? That it's a problem to get a credit card?
Oh, very difficult in certain stores.
Yeah. I was hearing that the other day.
It's very, very difficult. Yeah.
They're
taken advantage of in every avenue. There's no question about it. If you go and apply for a credit card under your own name after having been under a joint name, I get very emotional about these things, but I don't care. You go in and apply for a credit card under your own name and your husband's name taken off, and you say you're a housewife and your income is like, $300, $400 a month, where it was originally a tremendous amount.
And they want
Well, tremendous now to me, you know, but at that time it wasn't. And they say no.
And they won't.
Definitely no.
Yeah,
As though you're a less honest person.
That's why I
than
say
you
you're
were
no
when-
longer married in that respect.
Yeah,
That's why I say I'm no longer married, because I'm not considered married by the business world. I love my husband.
But we are second-class citizens, and you just take that on the chin and push on and get your friends and keep going.
Does the organization that you're working with now work toward knocking down some of this unfairness? Or are you just basically helping adjust?
Basically, it's we have monthly meetings in the organization. Every monthly meeting they have a speaker. One will come in and speak on finance. One comes in and speaks on assertion. I tried it once and I was so embarrassed. Learning how to assert yourself, you as a woman. And then we have women come in and speak on hiking, or different organizations that come in and talk to us. We have lawyers come in and talk on wills. May I say something here?
Sure.
I think it's very important for a woman and a man, a husband and wife, when they are married, make sure there is a will, make sure that you know what is going to happen in case there is a death in your family. And I also feel that when it comes to checkbooks, any personal property or home or anything like that should be put in joint tenancy with right of survivorship. Otherwise, the state steps in. The children possibly could get half of the estate. It takes 1.5 to 2 years sometimes to settle this. You have no money coming in, which is very, very bad.
What about the advisability of every wife learning, along with her husband, the machinery of day-to-day financing so that she wouldn't be in the dark?
That's all right. That's all right. But I think the average husband and wife do not think of the future in terms of death of one of the partners. I feel very strongly about this. And I was lucky in the respect that he had a will. And everything, we had talked it over before. I mean, this was just something because my sister had lost her husband, and it took her some time to get the money straightened around, the money aspect, financial aspect, so that we got everything in joint tenancy. I think there was a pickup truck was the only problem we had, but the will was probated and went right through. There was no problem at all.
Now, so each of you have children, and you mentioned, Helen, that children cannot replace a lost mate, but
I don't expect them to replace.
No, but are they helpful? I mean, were they helpful in your case and in yours, Maureen?
Gosh, I couldn't have gotten along without them.
Well, at that time, nothing was helpful to me except my green stuff, and I tell you that
was about all that you could rely on.
That was the only thing I could really count on.
If you hadn't had access to that, you think you would have been in real danger of despairing enough to take your life?
I would have, because I was so guilt-ridden over having not gone and been there. I thought if I'd been there, he wouldn't have died. And I was full of things. The doctor said, "You're crazy, you know, he'd have died anyway." But I couldn't get over the feeling that somehow I had killed him. So I felt like a murderer. Well, it took me, it's taken me many years to get over the guilt of his death, not through any reasoning, but through being sheerly burnt out like a flame burns out a cinder. And now, at this point in my life, my children, we're great friends. And my children take the place of everything, really, for me. I mean, they satisfy all my needs, really, because they're older, and I have nice son-in-laws, one sitting over there, and
I've met some
they just...
nice people. Do you feel good about yourself now, though? apparently.
I like myself.
That's good.
Because
You
I
should.
think I think I was, somehow, I know I was wrong, and I've done, but people have lived with worse crimes, and I'm not a bad person, I know that. And it's just been a process of burning out, through pain, what was eating me.
I want to thank both of you. The time seems so short. Thank you, Helen, for coming on, giving us this insight. And Maureen, how good to see you again.
Yeah,
thank you for being on the program. Really nice of you to share your lives, both of you, with us. Today, I think we discovered some important tools for any woman who finds herself alone. We've seen that we all respond to grief, each of us in different ways, but apparently it is essential to give in to grief, to acknowledge it, all its stages, before you can get on with your life. It's never easy for a woman to build a new life and a new identity after her husband dies, particularly in a society that, until now anyway, hasn't prepared for the increasing number of older women who find themselves alone. But that's a reality that most women, unfortunately, most women must someday face by themselves and prepare for now with the help and understanding of their families and friends and society as a whole. In the coming weeks on Over Easy, we're going to devote an entire half hour to issues affecting all of our lives, various half hours, whether we're 40 or 70. We're going to examine the status of geriatric medicine, puncture some myths about sex and the older person, explore a new generation gap, the one of middle-aged children and their parents. So be with us. I'm Hugh Downs. Thank you, and so long from all of us Over Easy.